Bunjil the eagle was the creator of all the things in the Badger Creek land. He created the animals, koala, snakefish, birds and kangaroo. He created everything. Every day he would fly over the land of Badger to make sure that everything was in order. From that day on, when anybody misbehaved, or one of the animals or a tree or something died, Bunjil would do the same thing, change them into a stone spirit and drop them back to the earth. Eventually they were all along the Badger Creek area. When the rain spirit saw what was happening, he cried, and his tears fell on these stones. They covered the stones all the way from Badger Weir, through the sanctuary, through Post-Coranderrk Reserve, all the way to Yarra River. The place is called Badger Creek.
And one of the challenges that we've got, I suppose, is the great diversity in our Aboriginal community, particularly in Healesville. We've got the Wurundjeri, our traditional owners, their 35,000 year connection to the land and plus, but we've got Aboriginal people from all over Australia now, living in Healesville in particular. So what does culture actually look like in that contemporary diverse community? And it's a really exciting, vibrant space when you start to unpack it and drill down. And the remarkable story was that with the ceremonial smoking pit being a stone mosaic of the way that Bunjil sees all the rivers and the creeks coming together in Healesville, which was really an acknowledgement and a recognition and showing respect to the ancient connection to this land of the Wurundjeri people, as I said earlier, at least 35,000 years ago.
The other really great thing about Coranderrk that I think is really important and really relevant still today is there was heaps of different people from heaps of different areas around Victoria and New South Wales, and they hung out and they worked together and they achieved so much together.
So a lot of people have connection to Coranderrk and Healesville as being home, even though they come from other country.
I've been involved in Aboriginality all my life. We used to visit Granny and grandparents out at Coranderrk in the 30s, several times a week. That was when my grandmother taught me basket coiling. And that's the thing, Aboriginal people did care for each other. They looked after each other.
Healesville itself owes a lot to Coranderrk, and Coranderrk, of course, owes a lot to Healesville. And for us, as Indigenous people growing up here, that connection is natural.
One of the legacies of Coranderrk is that we now see as arguably the spiritual home of Aboriginality in Victoria, in Healesville.
It's often been referred to as the most successful station or reserve in the country when it was up and running.
Possibly that may have been a part of the reason why they didn't let it continue, because it was such a positive place and such, you know, a thriving success.
I just want people to start to focus on all the achievements that happened at Coranderrk. They had a choice, which I think is remarkable. And I think that comes from the relationships that Barak established with people, whether they were black or white. He seemed to have this diplomacy and just this general respectful nature that people listened when he spoke. And I think he was a very quietly spoken man and didn't speak out of turn.
I don't see a lot of disconnection from the elders like it is in the remote communities here, but it's the elders that are the holder of the wisdom and the knowledge and the culture, particularly around respect, caring and sharing, and the really positive social values that those principles bring to community.
It, you know, grew to be such a large area, but very sad that, you know, over the years it was all taken away, and, you know, only a half-acre remained, the cemetery.
Many were gone back up to country but weren't allowed to take their children. Their children were left down here at Coranderrk, so they were all separated and they weren't allowed to speak their own lingo at the reserves. And because they weren't allowed to have their traditional wear, and they had to wear white man's clothes that aren't waterproof, so they were getting cold and sick, and so pretty sad stuff.
Back in more historical times, culture was forbidden to be practiced. Speaking language was forbidden. I mean, if you were very good, you'd actually get a token that would make you an honorary white person. Unfortunately, though, that would ban you then from going back to the missions to see your mother or your father, your brothers or sisters. You would be fined and then you'd be sent to jail. From my perspective, the biggest challenge that Aboriginal people have faced is the destruction of their culture. There would not be any traditional owner Victorian groups that do not have connections to the cemetery out there at Coranderrk. The spirits are very strong from all traditional owner groups in Victoria and possibly elsewhere.
As I said, it came from my grandparents and my mum and dad teaching us right from the word go that we had to respect each other and respect everything around us. And that to me is part of believing in the Creator. To look around and see His world, it's a beautiful world.
Yes, Coranderrk officially closed in 1924, but I don't see why Coranderrk has to stop. All their hard work wasn't for nothing, you know, that it meant something and that we remember them and that we're really proud of them.
I'm moved deeply by our traditional owners' wish, the Wurundjeri people, to bring Coranderrk to the lives of many people and embrace the richness and the history and the messages of hope and of great sadness, but of resilience and vibrancy and vitality, but never ever losing hope.
We've got to use the past to build the future.
Well, my first ever cultural class that I ever did was here when Una first opened, and my teacher was my mother. So the very first cultural class that was taught here, yeah, I was back then doing. I started my culture at a really young age.
two of the first students here at Una were elders. So they were the sort of trailblazers coming along and doing art when the younger ones started coming. You know, you're never too old to learn. The one thing that was really important to them was their culture, their story, where they were from and finding out. And for a lot of people, that's a big journey. You know, some people had connections to Coranderrk, so that's what brought them to Healesville, and you know, they chose to stay. And you know, for some, Healesville is the only place that they know of as home, even though you know their area may be from somewhere else. You know, they have never lived anywhere else but Healesville. So we just tried to make sure that you know what was available to community was what they wanted and what they needed.
Teaching our young people to live in two worlds is important, I think. Because as I said, there's more than just Aboriginal kids that need to do that.
I've got no doubt that the pride of culture is very strong amongst our Indigenous youth, and that obviously comes from the parents as well. But it's then connecting that pride with the wider environment and, you know, in a sense, for want of a better phrase, the non-Indigenous world that we live in. As much as I'd like to bring the two together, we need to develop understandings both ways. A lot of them would like to do it because there's a range of different courses that would really appeal to them, but they just don't see that they're smart enough, or that they'll be able to do it, or that they see it's too expensive for them.
Education in the classroom is only one way of learning, it's only one way, but we'd really like to see that education taking a more holistic approach, and you know, this notion of lifelong learning, that everything you do is a learning experience. So if you're having a very positive social experience, or you're well connected to community, you feel very comfortable in your Aboriginal skin, for instance. I think there's some really big learnings from Aboriginal culture that Western society really needs to embrace, and sooner than later.
We have a saying that Aboriginal culture is respect and caring and sharing. Oh, well, I think respect is a very important thing for everybody to have for everybody else, whether you're Aboriginal or not. Ask your grandmother where she came from, and then find out about her family, you know. It's important to know where your family came from and what they're about, you know. That's what gives you your strength.
Now this is a silk painting that the women's group did here at Una last year. We've made a bit of an ancestral story to it. Yeah, it just explains where our people come from, where we first started, and where we're born, and then now that we're a part of country and are here to love and respect and look after our country.
Essentially, education is the key. If we can get that right, we'll find a lot of the social problems that we see, they won't disappear, but they'll certainly be a lot easier to deal with. One of the things that I'm concerned about with education about Indigenous kids is the lack of understanding of the education system that parents have. But it's also, as I mentioned before, the lack of awareness of the education system has, or that the education system has, about Indigenous people and cultures in the world today.
we've had some fabulous leaders advocating for change and recognition of Aboriginal rights and issues in Healesville. And it's great to be able to actually be a part of that and build on the great work that the elders before us have done. And I'm thinking about the development of the Meeting Place Garden and the lovely story with that, the development of Healesville Indigenous Community Services Association.
'Cause all you could do was dream.
We seem to be moving into a new paradigm where this notion of collaboration and collective coordination with a genuine interest in improving the health and well-being of the Aboriginal community in Healesville is quite profound. So history continues to evolve.
Dream of your country.
I want to show particularly the non-Indigenous students the connection between what they've been taught and what they understand about traditional Aboriginal culture and how we exist today, and that it's not a distinction between black and white. The Indigenous history of Australia is the history of Australia, so it belongs to everybody who considers themselves Australian.
Dream of your country, dream of your land.
And this one here is all different campsites. So this one means the women. This one means the men, because they've got their spear and their shield. This one means elders camp because it's got the two shapes like that. And this one over here just being another women's or community camp. All the different patterns here represent each child, and this is just their journey. So this just means walkabout, their pathways.
I know in the park all up we've got 3 canoe scout trees. Most of them are along the creek line, which is pretty typical of back then. You get the job done as close as to what it's needed for. So yes, most of the canoe trees are right beside the creek, right along the water lines where you need to use them. A few of them are quite high up in the trees. Well, the actual canoe itself is probably about 9 foot, and it's looking probably roughly 14, 15 foot high up in the air sort of thing. So it's pretty good to get a lot of people questioning, how did they get up there? What happened there sort of thing.
It's become apparent that man, or Western man, doesn't exist as part of nature, but actually seeks to dominate or conquer it. We've all heard of man's battle with nature, but if man wins that battle, what happens then? So we've actually lost.
Yeah, I know that the bush isn't in its health like it was when my ancestors were about before the settlers come in, but there's places where we can work towards that. We can get that back.
With land is the underpinning concept of all Indigenous culture and Indigenous knowledge. And without that connection to land, in essence, the culture is fragmented at the very least and destroyed at worst. And we've seen examples of that, particularly in the urban areas of Australia. And so pointing that out to the students as well is very important, because they then develop an empathy, if you like, for the treatment of Indigenous people in this country, and understand why it's so important that we maintain the culture and maintain the connections to the land.
Dream of your country, dream of your land, the day that you'll be able to hold your mother's hand.
And it might not be exactly what the ancestors did, but at least you're having a crack, and I think that's what's important. That's part of the adapting to the new, the new atmosphere that you're in. I think it's pretty important for most tribes to do that. You know, that not just really feel like it's all lost. You know, it's something that's in you, and you can bring that back out.
Be taught how to ride, taught how to hide, how to live off the land and speak your mother tongue.
But it's still essentially the people-land culture connection and the way that we represent ourselves in the world around us and the way that we adapt to that environment that hasn't really changed for 60,000 plus years and probably never will change. And it's one of the messages that I'm hoping we can get non-Indigenous people to recognise and to embrace as well, because as I keep saying, they're part of that culture.
It doesn't matter where I go, in which direction away from these mountains, that when I'm coming back, as soon as I see them, I know that I'm home.
'Cause all you could do was dream.
But it's true. The trouble I said, nobody owns the land, but we belong to it.